Hello to everyone and welcome to this e-module on sustainable blue growth in the Mediterranean Sea. I'm Niccolò Bassan from the University U of Venice and will briefly explain to you the main concepts of this topic. Together we will see what is meant as blue economy or blue growth, how to ensure sustainable development, what is currently happening in Europe and the Mediterranean Sea, which are the main sectors involved, which are the main strategies in place, and how to balance economic prosperity with environmental sustainability. So let's start from what is blue economy? Although the term blue economy has been used in different ways, it is understood here as the range of economic sectors and related policies that together determine whether the use of oceanic resources is sustainable or not. An important challenge of the blue economy is thus to understand and better manage the many aspects of oceanic sustainability, ranging from sustainable fisheries to ecosystem health to pollution. The second significant issue is the realization that the sustainable management of ocean resources requires collaboration across nation states and across the public private sectors, on a scale that has not been previously achieved. The blue economy concept seeks to promote economic growth, social inclusion, and the preservation or improvement of livelihoods, while at the same time ensuring environmental sustainability of the oceans and coastal areas. It draws from scientific findings that ocean resources are limited and that the health of the ocean has drastically declined due to anthropogenic activities. The blue economy has diverse components, including established traditional ocean industries such as fisheries, tourism, and maritime transport, but also new and emerging activities such as offshore renewable energies, aquaculture, seabed extracting activities, and marine biotechnology and bioprospecting. The blue economy aims to improve beyond business as usual and to consider economic development and ocean health as compatible propositions. It is generally understood to be a long-term strategy aimed at supporting sustainable and equitable economic growth through ocean-related sectors and activities. A blue economy approach must fully anticipate and incorporate the impacts of climate change on marine and coastal ecosystems. Understanding of these impacts is constantly improving and can be organized around several main vectors, such as acidification, sea level rise, higher water temperature, and changes in ocean currents. The effective implementation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is a necessary aspect of promoting the blue economy concept worldwide. So what is a sustainable blue economy? Well, it is a marine-based economy that provides social and economic benefits for current and future generation. It restores, protects, and maintains the diversity, productivity, resilience, and core function of marine ecosystems. It is based on clean technologies, renewable energy, and circular economy concepts. It is governed by transparent public and private processes. And of course, the development of coastal and marine spatial plans is an important step to guide decision making for the blue economy and for resolving conflicts over the ocean space. But how to create a sustainable blue economy? While there is no universally accepted definition of sustainable blue economy, many agencies and organizations are working on describing how they understand the concept. One example are the principles submitted by WWF, in which a sustainable blue economy should set clear, measurable, and internally consistent goals and targets, assess and communicate their performance in a transparent way, create a level of economic and legislative playing field that provides incentives and rules, plan, manage, and effectively govern the use of marine space and resources, applying inclusive methods and ecosystem approach, develop and apply standards, guidelines, and best practices, recognize that marine and land-based economies are interlinked, and actively cooperate, sharing information, knowledge, and best practices. Moving to more practical things, what is happening in Europe and the Mediterranean Sea? Well, in 2012, the European Commission formulated its Blue Growth Strategy to harness the potential of Europe's oceans, seas, and coasts for growth and jobs. The objective of the Blue Growth Strategy was to promote smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth and employment opportunities in Europe's maritime economy. Indeed, Europe's maritime sectors employ over 5 million jobs, generating almost 500 billion euros a year. Investment in the marine economy has been provided by EU structural funds, in particular the European Regional Development Fund and the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund. But which are considered the essential components for blue growth in Europe? Well, to provide knowledge, legal certainty, and security in the blue economy, the essential components are marine knowledge and data to improve access to information about the sea, maritime special planning to ensure an efficient and sustainable management of activities at sea, and integrated maritime surveillance to give authorities a better picture of what is happening in the sea. But which are the main sectors involved in blue growth strategy? Well, globalization, technological advance, and the need to take action against climate change are altering the nature of traditional maritime industries and creating new ones. 5 sectors were selected for special attention because there was a limited understanding of the bottlenecks that prevented them from fulfilling their potential. The 5 driving sectors are coastal and maritime tourism. Indeed, the coastal tourism industry is by far the largest employer in the blue economy, with 21% of the EU population living in coastal municipalities. The blue energy, where offshore wind is the fastest growing activity in the blue economy, and ocean energy largely derived from the power of currents, tides, and waves. Seabed resources, where in addition to oil and gas, extraction in European waters is presently made up of aggregate extraction for construction and beach nourishment, together with shallow coastal water mining for other minerals. Blue biotechnology, where the variety of marine organism, which is greater than on land, can support the development of new products for the benefit of society. Marine biotechnology, or blue biotechnology, uses resources from living organisms at sea either as a source or as a target of biotechnology application. And aquaculture, considering that worldwide aquaculture production volume has been expanding at a rate of about 6% a year in the last decade, and today it accounts for more than 50% of seafood production. Besides these 5 main sectors, the more traditional ones, as shipbuilding, transport, fisheries, and offshore oil and gas, are also considered in the strategy. Here you can see the main expected development trends of the sectors in the Mediterranean Sea. As an example, oil and gas exploration and extraction, where offshore oil production could increase by 60% between 2010 and 2020. Or maritime transport, with a 4% per annum growth rate in global trade over the next decade. Or marine aquaculture, where forecast of fish aquaculture production in the Mediterranean countries of the EU anticipates a 112% increase between 2010 and 2030. Of course, tourism, where international tourist arrivals in the Mediterranean should increase by 60% between 2015 and 2030 to reach 500 million arrivals in 2030. Of course, coastal development, with 5,000 kilometers of additional coastline that will be artificialized by 2025. Renewable energy, where while no marine renewable energy was produced until 2014, predicted production of electricity by offshore wind farms or ocean energy could reach 12 gigawatts in 2030. These are just some of the future trends of development of the activities in the Mediterranean to give a broader picture of what will be the next future. In the Mediterranean region, the integrated maritime policy was designed to improve cooperation and governance, while also encouraging sustainable blue growth. The policy encompasses the following: the working groups for integrated maritime policy in the Mediterranean, involving all the countries bordering on the Mediterranean and regional organization, which meet annually, and the tripartite cooperation between the European Commission's Directorate General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, the European Investment Bank, and the International Maritime Organization, which has the aim of developing maritime sectors in the Mediterranean, especially in the EU's southern partner countries. Following up this cooperation, the three are working together with the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean and the countries concerned on key ideas including developing maritime clusters, promoting a network of maritime training institutes and academies, and developing a virtual knowledge center for marine and maritime affairs. Which are the main strategies in place in the Mediterranean Sea? The main strategies developed by the EU in the Mediterranean Sea are sub-regional strategies to exploit the strengths and address the weaknesses of particular maritime regions. For example, the OSIR strategy, the EU strategy for the Adriatic and Ionian region, launched on June 2014. The strategy and its pillars mainly revolve around the opportunities of the maritime economy, focusing on sectors that are bound to play a crucial role in creating jobs and boosting economic growth in the region, such as blue growth, land-sea transport, energy connectivity, protecting the marine environment, and promoting sustainable tourism. Besides this, concepts as maritime special planning and integrated coastal zone management are explicitly cited as cross-cutting tools to implement the plan, both at national and cross-border level, on the basis of the ecosystem-based approach. Another example is the WestMed strategy. The maritime economy of the Western Mediterranean region has huge potential for development. The Western Mediterranean region attracts the largest number of tourists in the Mediterranean basin, in part because of its art and cultural wealth. It is a biodiversity hotspot with nearly 500 marine protected areas, including Natura 2000 sites. The region is a rich fishing ground, accounting for over 30% of the total value of landings in the Mediterranean, and providing more than 36,000 direct jobs on fishing vessels. Despite these major assets, the region faces a number of challenges which add to its general geopolitical instability. Indeed, a prolonged economic and financial crisis with high youth unemployment in several countries, the growing coastal urbanization, the overexploitation of fish stocks, marine pollution, and last but not least, the refugee crisis. Moreover, climate change greatly affects the region, and the rise in sea level is a major threat to coastal ecosystems and economies. These three main goals were established to promote maritime activities in the region, and these are a safer and more secure maritime space involving border surveillance and monitoring, a smart and resilient blue economy with targets of sustainable blue growth in the involved sectors, and a better governance of the sea, which includes cooperation and collaboration activities. Another example is the BlueMed project, which is an innovative and multidisciplinary research to address the Mediterranean coastal and marine ecosystem management. The aim is the development of new marine-related technologies that are adapted for the specific needs of the Mediterranean Sea, to boost the safe and sustainable economic growth of the maritime sectors in the EU and beyond, as well as conserving and valorizing of marine cultural heritage. The scope is to create an interoperable, fully integrated multi-platform, observing and forecasting capability, supporting the conservation of biodiversity and the management of risks and emergencies at the coast and the sea. Last but not least, the scope is to support the implementation of the EU integrated maritime policy by providing knowledge-based support to policy decisions and ensuring the sustainable growth of the Mediterranean marine and maritime economy. But which are the main challenges for a sustainable blue economy? Well, Here are listed the main threats and challenges. First of all, the unsustainable extraction from marine resources, such as unsustainable fishing as a result of technological improvements coupled with poorly managed activities. International institutions estimate that approximately 57% of fish stocks are fully exploited, and another 30% are overexploited, depleted, or recovering. Another factor, an issue, is the physical alteration and destruction of marine and coastal habitats and landscape due to coastal development, deforestation, and mining. Coastal erosion also destroys infrastructures and livelihoods. This unplanned and unregulated development in the narrow coastal interface has led to overlapping uses of land and marine areas, marginalization of poor communities, and loss or degradation of critical habitats. Of course, marine pollution, for example in the form of excess nutrients from untreated sewage systems, agricultural runoff, and marine debris such as plastics. An important challenge are the impacts of climate change, for example in the form of both slow onset events like sea level rise and more intense and frequent weather events. And last but not least, the unfair trade. Indeed, exclusive economic zones, areas in which a state has sovereign rights over exploitation and use of marine resources, are crucial to smaller economies in developing states and often dwarf their corresponding landmass and government's administrative capacity. In the case of fishing, fishing agreements allowing access to an EEZ, there's usually a low appropriation of fisheries export revenues by national operator and insufficient transfer to national stakeholders of specific fishing knowledge by foreign fishing companies. So it is crucial to understand how to balance economic prosperity and environmental sustainability. And here in this map, you can see how around the Mediterranean there are areas of high interaction between blue growth and sites of conservation interests. This, in the future, could lead to possible conflicts and long-lasting effects. Thank you very much for following this e-module on sustainable blue growth, and please find included the references used for this presentation and other useful links on the topic.